you what we've got going on. Let me see if I can pull back up the chat here so that we can hear from you guys. But always appreciate everybody that tunes in each and every morning. So what do we got? Any questions that you guys have? I'm happy to try to answer. Of course, I'm just a journalist, so I'm not an attorney. I'm not a constitutional law professor or anything like that. But whatever types of questions you may have, I'm happy to try to point you in the right direction, having covered this for as long as I have covered this. So let's see, what do we got? Some of the questions and the comments that are coming in. Let's see if we can get those pulled up here as we got them pouring in. Good morning to all of you. Appreciate your time. And you guys are really driving the show here with your interest in all of this. So let's see what we've got here. I'm going to actually show some of the live comments on the screen. So let's see. If I have 2 items, is that 2 charges? A misdemeanor and a felony, John asks. Yeah, that's an interesting question. And just if I recall, that was actually a question that the Illinois State Police did address. But how they addressed it was, it's up to the local prosecutors. It's up to the local state's attorneys and the courts how they're going to deal with that type of thing. So hopefully that answers your question, John. Another question. Let's see here. Are all semi-auto pistols banned in Illinois? No, from my understanding, the pistol restrictions really deal with like Uzi type of firearms, handguns that have a threaded barrel that you could put on a silencer. Again, caveat here, I am not a firearms expert either. All right, I'm just a reporter who tracks Illinois state government. But that's my understanding, that semi-automatic pistols in general are not banned, but those that have certain ways to attach different things or could possibly, be like an Uzi type of handgun, those types of things are banned by state law. Again, all this is being challenged. All this is, things that we're seeing play out in the courts and being challenged. What else we got? Let me pull up the questions again as we do this live to tape with all of you guys hanging out. Appreciate the time. Let's see here. Get a sponsor for the show. Make a couple of bucks. Appreciate that. We'll just let the YouTube generated stuff do what it's doing. So appreciate that. Trust me, I've had a lot of people ask, well, you're gonna get sponsors. I'd like kind of just doing this with zero beholden. Let's see here. From the gun grabber's perspective, would allowing the registry of guns purchased during Freedom Week further jeopardize the bad law? That's an interesting question. I don't know. I don't know what that perspective would be. Why is corporate journalism rushing to defend the states instead of the people? Not only about PICA, but about everything. It's very disappointing. And that's coming from Mike on Facebook. Listen, I think that's a general concern that a lot of people have when it comes to legacy media. And that's why I think you've got a lot of alternative outlets gaining more steam, especially when it comes to touching on issues not just out of Washington, D.C., but also when it comes to even reporting on state houses across the state. Let's see here. Pulling up some more comments. Keep up the great work. Appreciate that. FOID is an unconstitutional permit to purchase scheme. Somebody else says, we don't get any relief from SCOTUS until Beavis versus Naperville in June. Well, listen, there could be even before that. California has a lawsuit against semi-automatic bans that's progressing and possibly could actually get to the U.S. Supreme Court before Illinois. Let's see here. Can I take my 17-round mag to the range? That's an interesting question. And again, I am not an attorney. I would strongly encourage you to get official word from your attorney. But the question again is, can you take a 17-round mag to the range? And I had somebody else ask me a question on X a couple of days ago about magazine capacities. First off, magazines do not need to be registered. All right, so that's been clearly spelled out by Illinois State Police. Magazines do not need to be registered. But what magazines can you carry? I think that, if you're driving around and you have a concealed carry license and you get pulled over, and then the police officer says you've got a concealed carry license, do you have a firearm? And you say yes, and then they ask to inspect the firearm, and if that firearm has a 17-round mag, I guess that could possibly trigger a possible charge, right? That you have a banned magazine out in public, despite having a concealed carry license. So that's how I think that ultimately somebody could trigger a charge, a criminal charge. So you should be able to find magazines that fit your handgun that only hold 15 rounds for the max. Because anything over that, 16 and over, that's illegal. Can you take them to the range? Again, I don't have the answer to that question. Sorry about that. Let's see here. What else we got? What's the recourse for the cost of storing the firearms out of state when this is ruled unconstitutional? That's an interesting question. Yeah, that's what do you think? What do they call that? Takings. Whenever somebody loses money because of state actions. And whether or not they're going to be able to reclaim those dollars, that value, if a law is ruled unconstitutional, I guess each individual would probably have to take that to, say, the court of claims or something to that effect. There's an administrative process that people can go through to file financial claims against the state. So that's an interesting question from Joe. Let's see here. Looking at some more questions. Can we start a list of Pritzker-owned businesses and get Gun Owners of America to boycott every single business? Okay, it's an interesting thought. Your opinion, are they likely to issue search warrants for your home? John asks. I don't have an answer for that. I think that's going to be maybe up to each individual state's attorney's office. Whether or not the Illinois Attorney General could come into a county and ask for a search warrant for a particular person, I don't know. That's kind of uncharted territory here. And listen, even the governor a couple of weeks ago, he said that nobody's going to get arrested on this. I mean, the first instance is a misdemeanor. But whether or not, how aggressive they're going to be, especially after January 1st in enforcing this, do they have the manpower to do such a thing? It's an interesting question. So I really couldn't answer that for you. All right. Yes, that is correct. Chubby guy, nothing over 15 rounds for pistols or 10 rounds for rifles can be transported legally. That is my understanding. Correct. Now, you can take a banned firearm to a range if you have that range's permission. And I think in the second notice rules, it does spell out, for instance, like, Olympic sports shooters, if they're going to, say, the, shooting complex down in Southern Illinois, the shooting complex does not need to check to see if somebody's registered. I think that is in the second notice rules. But again, that's the second notice rules. Those aren't the rules that are in place right now. What's in place is the emergency rules. So that's a good question there. Let's see here. Some more questions pouring in as we do this live to tape on a Friday morning, the final Friday of the year. Let's see. Going through the questions. All it takes is a disgruntled family or friend to call and say that you are a danger. Well, that's also the red flag aspect, and that's why some people have serious problems with the red flag laws. Let's see here. Other questions. Did you say you don't have to register magazines? Correct. Illinois State Police said when they announced the rules, you do not need to register magazines. So, listen, I mean, there's obviously a ton of questions in all of this, and we'll obviously be watching closely what happens, because that January 1st deadline is just around the corner with all kinds of lawsuits still pending, but no lawsuit has succeeded in blocking that January 1st deadline. So clearly there's a lot more to come with all of this. We'll be tracking it, all right? It is Bishop on Air. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and being part of the program. You guys really are what makes this program run, just with your attention on it every day that we go live, but also with the clips that we share of the interviews. If you miss anything, you can always check out the channel, youtube.com/bishoponair, and you can see all the clips that we put together, all the interviews that we've done. And you can go back and check out the history of this. I do plan at some point, and it might be sometime during the day Saturday, who knows, maybe even on New Year's Eve, we'll do a midday live show, but I want to try to do a live to tape documentary of how far we've come since this time last year, because it was around this time of last year that discussions about banning certain firearms in the state of Illinois really picked up. And then it was the tail end of the previous Illinois General Assembly 2-year term where they had the measure, I think it was like a bill about insurance code that they gutted and replaced and put the gun ban in there, and they passed it within a matter of days, really, maybe hours, and getting this measure across the finish line during lame duck session, where you had the majority in the Illinois State House with one Republican. I believe former State Representative Jim Durkin, a Republican, he was the Republican leader. He actually voted for the gun ban, but that was his vote on the way out of the General Assembly. He's no longer at the State House. But January 10th, it was enacted, and then the lawsuit started. Thomas Magg filed the first one in state court that was transferred to federal court. He's still challenging the Fifth Amendment argument in the Southern District of Illinois, with January 4th being a status hearing. So that's coming up just around the corner. Then you had a bunch of lawsuits. Don't forget about the temporary restraining orders that attorney Tom DeVore got for thousands of plaintiffs and gun stores as well. So one thing that's interesting is how this Will County case that we heard from the Illinois State Rifle Association, and I've neglected to ask Richard Pearson about this, but how would this impact those individuals who had temporary restraining orders against the state from enforcing it, right? So you had thousands of people as part of those temporary restraining orders that were in place for months. Then you had the case from Dan Calkins in county level case, got a final judgment order that went right to the Illinois Supreme Court, and ultimately the Illinois Supreme Court, with all the saga around two of the Supreme Court justices getting $1 million each from the governor. So you have that storyline in all of this. You've also got all of the lawsuits in the Southern District and the Northern District that were combined into the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, and then the requests for the U.S. Supreme Court to intervene. All of that not advancing to the point where the law was put on hold. So here we are now, knocking on the door of January 1st, and that deadline is approaching, and people still unclear on the rules, because the rules themselves, as you heard from Richard Pearson, have not been fully codified, meaning they have not been fully put into place, because we're still working under emergency rules, which have a lot of holes in them. And holes that are recognized by Illinois State Police, because they're trying to plug those holes with the second notice rules that still are not in effect. And those aren't going to be taken up until January 16th. So kind of fascinating to see all this in real time. But guys, listen, that's all I've got for you today. Short program. Not nearly the hour and 15 minutes it was yesterday, but still a lot to unpack here. So we will be tracking this. I'm gonna be off on Monday, just so you guys know. I'm not gonna do a live show on Monday. It is New Year's Day, so I'm gonna sleep in and just focus on New Year's resolutions, I guess. But we will be back at it Tuesday morning. So live right here, Bishop on Air, YouTube, X, Facebook, I got calls from people. Somebody called me from New York the other day. I've gotten calls from people in Texas who are watching. It's incredible to see just exactly where people are watching from, but it's really it's humbling. Let's just put it that way. And all I'm doing is I'm just a reporter, right? That's all I'm doing. I'm just reporting what's happening with what's considered a fundamental civil liberty constitutional right in the Bill of Rights, the Second Amendment. So have yourselves a wonderful rest of the day. Check back often. Follow me on Facebook. Follow me on X. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell with YouTube. And if you want to support the show, you can do so by, buying some merchandise or just watching the channel. You can support the show that way. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of the day. We'll see you back here live in the mornings in the new year. All right? And then we'll really get into the nitty gritty after the new year. Appreciate you guys' time this morning. All right.